So, was the story really a fable? Well, guess what? That's when I got to be really controversial on the internet about 7 years ago, because I found that it wasn't a fable. It's actually true. And the reason why is all these photon receptors here get activated by UVA and infrared A light subcutaneously where humans keep their fat mass. And that message has to go to your hypothalamus and tell your hypothalamus truly what the energy status is in your body that's related to the sunlight you get, not the food you eat. Don't believe it? Take a look at the sun here in the skin. Like I said, this may be next year's talk. Visible light come through here, turns on all these systems. These are all the body systems. You'll see melatonin here, and you'll see all the D hormones here and all the sun hormones. When Ruben said the word allostasis or homeostasis, this is the slide that I had in mind. It is absolutely critical to understand if you have any imbalance in the system, that is where the organ system goes south. That is how it works. If you get out of the way, the anatomy is controlled by your nuclear DNA. It is built for perfection if you're in the right stimulus. None of you are in the right stimulus. No food can fix your problem when this is an error. That's the inconvenient truth. Now, did I believe it in the beginning? No. I told people last year when I was here, when I did the leptin prescription biohack on myself, I went into it not believing a damn thing. And then when I did it, I lost 77 pounds in 3 months and then 135 in 11. My wife used to come in and watch me in the shower, and the weight would come off. And she's like, I don't understand how this works. In 3 months, I added cold to the mix for a different reason. And that's not really part of this talk, but it is part of the story. But cold accelerated the loss. The reason why, it uncoupled my K haplotype more. I released more heat from my mitochondria, shrunk the water around my mitochondria, brought the respiratory proteins closer together, and had to eat less food. That's how it works, okay? Once you become a mitochondriac, once you understand the physics of organisms, your understanding of how things really work in us change. You don't have to believe it. I'm cool with that. But here was my problem. I'm from New York City. That's my hometown. Take a look. That's at nighttime. That's 11 o'clock at night. That's what I do for a living. I put together spines that are dislocated after car wrecks. And guess when that shit happens? Not at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay? That was my problem. I realized immediately that my job and my lifestyle were bringing me into an area. And for those of you who don't know, neurosurgery residency is 7 years of doing this. I've been doing this for 27 years. Guess what I did? I ruined my mitochondria. Completely ruined them. So what have I been doing the last 12? I'm a mitochondriac. Everything I can possibly do to fix mitochondria is the key. This is for you. This is for you to realize. This is the big thing. Last year when Dave invited me here, Magda Havas was sitting in the front row and I made a controversial statement then, and I'll say it again. Blue light is the biggest worry, biggest non-native EMF we have. There's others, but right now it's still blue light. Do I think in the next 18 months it's going to change to 5G? I do. Again, a talk for another day. But you need to understand this. Porphyrins are the retinal receptors. We're coming close to the end, but this is really important for you to understand. You know that there's this huge disease out now. Number one cause of blindness in North America is AMD. This is the optic nerve. There's those vessels I showed you before. There's the fovea. That is a hole in the fovea. That's what AMD looks like under a microscope. And AMD, for those of you who don't know, is acute macular degeneration. It makes you go blind. Okay? What's changed? Cathode ray TVs, now LEDs. In case you don't know, LEDs, right there, folks. Does that look like the sun? No, not even close. I never saw a case of AMD when I was a resident. I finished my residency in 1999. I want you to think about that for a minute. We got a couple other doctors here that they could probably tell you what they've seen. The key is you have to have balanced AM light. AM light is absolutely critical. Here's the point. Look at these spectrums. You don't even have to know the numbers. Does any of these look correct? This is what you're optimized to. 4.5 billion years of evolutionary history. Right there, take a look. And we have changed it since 1879. And we think there's no biologic toll. That is what we're getting. You know what I consider Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and Huntington's? That's it, right there. That's it. That's where we're headed. We're headed off a cliff and we don't realize it. And it's so obvious when you see the mitochondrial diseases. So, what happened in the last 12 years? See, 12 years ago, Jack was crazy. 7 years ago, the paleo guys told me I was crazy. The food guys still think I'm crazy. So, what showed up in the literature? Blue light affects the circadian oscillator in the eye. Okay. Oh, color entrains the mammalian clock. Oh, Jack's getting less crazy. Oh, look at this one. LED lights have links to the eye. Shocker. Look at that. Artificial light that's made causes a problem with sleep. Can you imagine that? Here's the big one. This is the one I told you about, beta endorphin. You are designed, and this chemical, when it comes through the central retinal pathways, POMC is made in your brain by light as it slows down. Look at some of the other hormones. ACTH. Think that's important in an adrenal stress index? Damn straight. That's where cortisol comes from. That's why cortisol and melatonin are the opposite sides of that spectrum. That is a story about light. Everything is a story about light. This is really counterintuitive for people to hear the first time until you see it laid out. When I told the ophthalmologist this and gave this talk, they were floored. I pulled it from their own literature. A stupid neurosurgeon went into their ancient literature and found what was there. What did I tell you about innovation? You take things that are known and connect them in ways people haven't thought. I didn't discover shit. I'm just really curious. That book changed my life. Here's the big controller. Melatonin, you can take a look here, produced by the photoreceptors and other retinal cell types, RPE. Guess what it does? It regenerates every single cell in the retina. Melatonin is first made in your eye. Stop believing the nonsense about the pineal gland. Guess when that comes on? It comes on with Maddie's slide. The porphyrins, when light signals, as you heard in the other talk about light, when light gets changed to an electromechanical wave, the waveform, the solitons, the acoustic phonons in the blood plasma, send that signal to the superior cervical ganglion. That's what tells your pineal gland it's nighttime. The vibrations made by porphyrins from your red blood cells is what gives the signal for melatonin to be released in the pineal. That process is called molecular resonance transfer, meaning there doesn't need to be a direct connection. The connection is via light and through soliton waves in your vessels. And that's the key. So, the anterior retina to your hypothalamus is a central semi-conductive circuit. This goes all the way back to Albert St. George in 1941. He's the first one that mentioned it. He won a Nobel Prize. Everybody laughed at him when he said it. Turned out, Ott found it, Holwich found it. Everything in your anterior chamber is a semiconductor. What does that mean? It absorbs light and it re-emits light. And inside that light, that signaling tells the brain exactly what to do. That's the key. This hormone everybody now knows in food circles is really important, but nobody still knows why. Well, it turns out it absorbs all this light. That's what leptin resistance functionally is. You can have leptin, but if you can't do anything with the signal, you're leptin resistant. And leptin resistance is what causes obesity. We now know all the effects of blue light. This is the artificial light that we're around here. It causes all these things. Take a look at them. Every single one. Notice that obesity is on the list. See, Jack's no longer crazy because now it's well known in the literature it's associated with obesity. But I got a big one coming for you. That semiconductive pathway, this is the keys. Red's got to balance blue. Neuropsin absorbing the UVA, then melanopsin at nighttime. But Ruben told you, you must block blue when the sun sets. You must get UVA and infrared A light through your eye and on your skin every morning. If you don't do it, you fail. That is your practice. You must do it. And if you don't, then you're going to suffer the consequences. Don't believe me? AM light is different. Notice the difference here. See the color temperature of sunlight when it rises is 1800 Kelvin. Look at what it's at sunset. Notice this blue scale. It's mostly red, but the light is bluer as the day goes on. Why? That's when melanopsin works, because what does it pay attention to? 435 to 465 light, which is blue. That's what the signal is. And you want to know the key? Right here at noon, 5750 Kelvin. Do you know what your computer screen is at home 24/7? 5750 Kelvin. Some of the newer screens, 6500. So every time you turn the damn computer on, it's noon to your brain. For those of you who don't believe me, all the kids that have cell phones, 5 years ago I did a hack in my office on a whole bunch of kids Matt's age, and this is a long time ago, 150 times per day they look at a cell phone. 150 times per day, that means they're getting a signal that it's noon. For those of you who don't think this is a big deal, when I mentioned this to the Paleo guys about 7 years ago, they laughed. The astronauts that go in the International Space Center see the sunrise and sunset 19 times in a day. You want to know why they all come back and they age faster? What happens if you're doing it 150 times a day and you're not going in the sun? Do you think that you can get kids at 25 years old that come in with carotid dissections because they have carotid disease? Why are all these diseases seemingly coming out of nowhere? Guess why? Light. How many times have I mentioned food? This is the key, folks. Blue light that's man-made is absolutely destroying us, and it affects the way your mitochondria can handle electrons from food. That's where the food story comes in, because the more those respiratory proteins get stretched out, it doesn't matter what you eat. You're going to have a problem. You have to shrink those respiratory proteins closer together so they can do what they do.